What's up guys, it's your boy Rabner, and today I'm going to be going over how to build really nice looking roofs inside of Minecraft. So as you can see behind me, I have lots of examples of roofs you can build. I'm going to be going through each one of them individually and how you sort of build them and make them look good. So let's get right into it. So the first roof is just your normal stair roof. So as you can see, it just goes up one block at a time. So it just goes sort of like one stair and then just goes up, and at the top here, as you can see, it's just got slabs to sort of round it off. In building, what you want to do is have a one block center for most of the builds you do, and in this case we obviously have that. Something that you really need to do in most cases is have an outline. So what you want is for the roof to sort of hang over the rest of the build in this A-frame, in this case at least. So what you want is for the roof itself, the stairs, you want them to be just sort of along here, one block out from the actual wall, and you want it in this case to also be one block out. What I've seen a lot of people do is just sort of remove those stairs and just have it like that, but you want some upside down stairs under sort of like the ones going up like that, as that sort of just adds extra shape and it just makes it look good. Obviously you could do like fence gates, they sometimes look good, but I think realistically you just want to use normal stairs as they just look the best underneath them. So what I'm going to be doing for this is, as you can see, I've got lots of sort of like back areas that you might want to use. So obviously, although I'd recommend most of the time just using an A-frame like this, but another way you can do it is by just going sort of like up, sort of using the same stair technique, just going inwards with your stairs, and all this does is it just means that you have like a little bit more extra shape in it, and I think it looks pretty cool. Next we have the one that goes up like 2 blocks at a time. So obviously we're still one block out from a wall, and then it goes up sort of like a block, and we have a stair on top of that block, and what this does is make it look a bit steeper, and I think it makes it look a lot like pretty cool. It works really well in sort of a medieval setting, so I'd recommend it for that sort of setting, and yeah, I think it looks pretty cool. So obviously at the back here, it's the same sort of thing really. Obviously we're using normal stairs at the bottom, similar to this one, but what you want to do here is you want to go up and then put the stair, but then in the corners you want to have them just be a block, because otherwise if you do it, it looks a bit funny. So you want to do that, just sort of like round it out a bit and make it look a bit more smooth. Obviously up the top here it's not 2 blocks, but if you wanted to you could make it 2 blocks, and obviously the thing going along the top here is just made out of full blocks connecting into the stair, which is facing sort of backwards into that block. Next we have slabs. Again, pretty simple. Something I do want to point out is just how I've put the oak wood sort of going underneath them on all of the builds actually, and this just sort of like makes it sort of look pretty cool, and it just, as you can see, it just sort of gives the roof a little bit more outline, especially if this wall is going to be 1 block back. You really need this. So as you can see, what we've done here is we've just made it look like they're all full blocks. So what you want to do is you just want to go up here. Obviously the slab is going to go on the top side of the block, because otherwise you'd have to break this and that wouldn't really look very good. So then you just put it on the side of the block and then go in, and then you place another slab on top, regardless if it's a full block or not. You just go up like that, making it look like it's a full block all the way along, except for on this corner bit where you want it to be a slab going along here. And obviously on the back it's just exactly the same for the sort of like inner part. You just want it to go up sort of like this, just in. You don't need to do any funny corner things here. All you need to do is for it to go up just like this. Next we have a sort of interesting one, just to show how you can use shape a bit more like in these builds. So obviously this goes from a 2 block to a 1 block to a slab, and as you can see it just goes sort of up like that and looks really cool. And obviously you just use the things we've already learned from our other buildings on the sort of like back here. So obviously you don't want to put a stair on the corner here. You want it to just go sort of along like this, and obviously it looks pretty cool. not so much from the back, but this sort of front part kind of looks like a barn, an old-fashioned one, and I think it looks really cool. This is a sort of Chinese, Japanese style, so as you can see, it transitions from slabs into the stairs. This is just sort of like the anti-version of this, so as you can see, it doesn't really work quite so well on the smaller scale. But what we do is we sort of have this slab in the corner, and then it goes sort of like out another block on the side, so we have sort of like a 2-block overhang here. And it goes up with the slabs until you reach sort of like a point where the slab can be flat and you can place a stair on top of it. And then what you do is you just build it up until you get to the top, and then you want to do this sort of funny pattern here where the stair is facing outwards and you place an upside down stair sort of going out from that. So as you can see, inside of this bit you want to try and line up the sort of like all the slabs, and which is the same for most of the other ones, well, pretty much all of them. And it just goes back trying to align it, but obviously there is a bit of a thing down here that doesn't really look too great, but obviously you can cover it up with whatever you want. Obviously on the back it's a bit different, it doesn't really line up very well, but as you can see, all we're doing here is it's sort of like we have our sort of like dark oak slab as on the side of this, then we have another slab on the same level again outside. It then goes up in the corners to reach this sort of like point here, and then obviously where the slabs go up until it reaches a good point, it turns into the stairs, and obviously we have a little A-frame here. As I said before, it works better on a larger scale, but it still looks pretty cool. Next we have sort of circular roofs. I'm going to go over these pretty quickly, but basically all you want to do is have, like, for slabs and stairs, you just want to try and make it look as natural and circular as possible. So here, as you can see, I've sort of added some slabs going in, not completely following the wall, as we sort of did with most of the other ones. And all this does is it just sort of gives it a little bit more shape, because otherwise it will look a bit square. Because if you see here, it means we have this sort of like 5x5 square, which doesn't really look very good. So you want to place your sort of like slabs sort of down there to make it look a bit more circular, but it is by eye, so if that doesn't really work out for you, then you can just do it however you want. Obviously next we have the stair one. Another thing you can do in the corners with the stairs, if they're sort of like all the way around, is you can like put slabs, and obviously full blocks in this case, so it sort of goes along this side here. Obviously the base here we have full blocks in the sort of like corner side bits here, and all it does is it goes up and then it turns into a slab, and then the sort of stairs thin out as they get close to the top with a slab here. This one's a bit more complicated, but as you can see, we've still got this stairs at the bottom, similar to the other sort of 2-block tall one. Sorry, I don't know why it's so shaky, but as you can see, all it does is it just goes up, and you're just trying to sort of make some mini A-frames going along here. So as you can see, it's just going up, you're just trying to make it look sort of like as tall as possible. It does kind of look a bit sort of like it's going more circular and then taller up to the top, but all you want to do is try and make it sort of like as tall as possible, while trying to keep sort of like the 2 tall parts there. And you also want it to sort of like have more shape to it, so if this was just flat it wouldn't look very good, but since it's got these sort of mini A frames on it, made out of sort of a dark oak wood, it looks pretty cool. And obviously on the top here you can use different like walls, going into fences, going into iron bars, to make it look a bit more pointy on the top. So some general things about these styles of roofs before we get into some like dormers. What you want to do is you want to mix and match these. So we're going to be going over some other buildings I've made, sort of showing off different roof types later, but what you want is you want to sort of like mix these up. So if you have, for example, a tall roof like this, and you have sort of like a lower layer on it, which we'll have a look at again, you might want to do this as a slightly less steep version of this roof, because that will just add a little bit of sort of like variation to your build and will make it look pretty cool. Obviously some of these won't work on certain builds, especially using scale. So if you're like if you have a pretty wide building, this one will obviously get very, very tall, and it obviously depends whether you want it to be quite that tall. So yeah, you can also, you don't have to use sort of like stairs and slabs in these sort of builds. So for example, I've made builds where instead of using like these sorts of blocks, you mix in a bunch of different blocks, sort of like terracottas and brown, things like that. That works well for sort of like a Tudor style build. Obviously, these are just ideas. You can change them up as much as you want. You could have it going up sort of like 3 blocks. So obviously it goes sort of like that, like this. Then, oh, wrong one. 1, 2, 1, 2. And it could just go up like that, but obviously that would be incredibly tall, so that's your choice if you want to do that. And obviously you can sort of have it sort of rounding out slightly less like this, or you can use whatever you want, just sort of mix it up. That's what I'd recommend doing to sort of understand how roofs work. Now going on to some dormers. As you can see, I've just made some simple roofs here. Obviously you don't have to do like an entire A-frame, you can just do half of one if you want and sort of have them connecting together. So that's obviously a good idea if you want to do that. But the main thing you want is for it to just sort of come out of the roof at a good point. So for example, if we look at this tall roof over here, we don't want it to be quite on the bottom layer, we want it to be sort of like here, and a few blocks sort of like away from the side, so we'd realistically probably want it to be like here if we were going to put a dormer on this building. And that just means that it doesn't look like just like an extension of the actual building, it looks like it's like inside of the roof. So obviously, in this case, all we've done is we just added sort of like a stairs airframe on this. Obviously, you could make that taller, or like a 2-block, or just a slab one if you don't have as much room. And obviously, that looks really cool, and it just adds a lot of sort of like depth and extra detail to your build. In terms of connecting this, sort of like the outline block, which you will need in most builds, is obviously the one you want to use. So all you want, so you just want to have the outline. That will take sort of like that will be the most important one, so it will replace the dark oak if you sort of like place that in before, in this case at least. And obviously you just want to use whatever you want for the windows. You probably want sort of like a corner block to be the sort of the edge of the dormer. So that's just sort of like the simplest one you can do. But obviously there are quite a few others, as you can see here. A very simple one you can use on lots of small builds is just something like this. So what you do is you just sort of have to place a block sort of like on a different axis from the this one. So obviously if you did sort of something like that, the window wouldn't connect. So what you want to do is you want to place it sort of against another one, and obviously on the other side, and then just put a slab on top of it. You can also obviously do the same for on a larger scale like this, and that also looks pretty cool. So these are two sort of like types of the same thing. So it's basically just building up like 2 blocks, then going back with the slabs. Obviously this sort of has a side version of it instead of the A-frame on the front, and that can look pretty cool and give a sort of bit of cool looking gaps almost in the different parts. And this is obviously a slab one as well. So as you can see, this one is just sort of having the rounded off part and with no A-frames, and it just connects in really well. So what you want to do is you don't want to sort of overdo the roof with these. You want to have a bit of open space so you can actually see the inner wood part. So yeah, so this is just sort of the basics, but now I'm going to show you how these look in some actual builds, so you can get an idea of how you use them to your advantage. So as you can see, these are 3 builds that I have used sort of interesting types of roofs in. I've done tutorials on sort of the Tudor style build and the Gothic style build, but I'm going to do a tutorial on this sort of house at some point, so look out for that if you want to, and that's the one we're going to be going over first. So as you can see, this is a very interesting building, but focusing on the roof itself, as you can see, it's just made out of sort of andesite with some more blocks mixed in, which are also stairs. So obviously if I go into my inventory and look up stairs, there are so many that you can choose from, and I think these are some very interesting blocks that you can take advantage of, especially if you mix them in. Obviously in some of the other builds we can see that we've done it over there, mixing in blackstone blocks together, and in this case we've done it with andesite. I think it looks really cool. So this house, this part here at least, has a perfect showing of how you want to mix in different types. So in terms of mixing in sort of like slabs and stairs together, I have done a 2-block one over there with some slabs. And obviously what you want to do is you want to try and mix them in as organically as possible. So obviously you don't want any weird gaps, so obviously if we did this, so obviously if you do that, sort of with a slab going into nothing and then a stair, it doesn't look natural. So you kind of want this top full block to sort of match up into it. As you can see, obviously here, the bottom of the slab goes into the stair, and this bit you want to go into sort of like the top and just create like a full block. Obviously on this part, as you can see, the stair is going backwards, sort of like this. That looks pretty cool. And then obviously we've got slabs going along the top part. We've obviously got some pretty cool dormers going on here. So as you can see, we're just using the sort of A-frame on the side bit here. If they sort of look like they're going in a bit sort of too close to the top, you can obviously make them less steep. Sort of with the slabs, if you just go 2 slabs, like 2 slabs on the same layer, sort of like this, and then you go up another one, you can do that if you want. But in this case, I just did normal slabs, as I thought they looked pretty cool. Something a bit special about this roof is, as you can see, it's got sort of a bit going underneath it that makes the roof stand out even more, another block out. This is obviously a very interesting thing to do, and I'd recommend it if you have sort of like a larger building and you want the roof to stand out. And obviously you want to use sort of a different block inside of that to sort of like the outer roof, well, the roof on the top and the outer lining here in general. We have a diagonal roof here. I'm not really going to go over it that much, but as you can see, all it does is it just goes slabs. Then sort of in this bit here, you want to do a full block, and then that's just, it looks a bit funny, but it's actually the same sort of like steepness as for slabs. But yeah, I'll do a specific video on diagonals because they're really interesting. But yeah, so obviously we got a tower here with a pretty bad like looking windmill, but as you can see, we've got another version of the slab thing here. This one isn't quite as good as the other one. It looks a bit clunky, but it still shows off how it works. And obviously you have multiple layers of the different roof types on this build. Over here you can see that we've got another roof here, but what I've done here is I've mixed in stairs and full blocks. This just makes the roof look sort of more interesting and different, and I definitely sort of recommend, if you have a very flat roof, you might want to do sort of the same thing there. Obviously you can add different sort of heights on this as well, so we've got slabs and sort of stairs, and as well, I think it just works really well together. I have done a tutorial on this one, so you can go and watch that if you want to. This is sort of like a gothic one, and as you can see, this is a little bit different on the edges because it's got sort of like these spikes and sort of anvils going along the top. So something you can do if you want is sort of have some stairs and slabs going along the tops, along the sides of this, facing upwards. So unlike the other buildings where the stairs are sort of facing downwards, you can like alternate it and place something on top of this. So what this means is you can place sort of like a railing along it. So I'd recommend using making sort of patterns out of obviously anvils, walls, iron bars, especially in this gothic style, as that just makes it look really interesting. Obviously this is sort of like a going up in the sort of smooth pattern here, and we've obviously used this on this build along with different types of dormers. So this is just an example of a one that goes completely sort of 2 blocks up, and I think it looks pretty cool. Obviously you can try to mix these sort of bits in, but in the end I think it looks pretty cool. Obviously there are different types what you can do. Obviously we've got some sort of like taller towers here where I've used iron bars on the top to make it look good. I'd recommend taking chimneys sort of out for roof, which we've done on all of these buildings. And yeah, so another thing you could do if you want is sort of add like leaves going down the sides, sort of like vines, to add a bit more detail. That always looks good, and if you want to, you can do that. So that's sort of how I'd recommend to build roofs. I'm sorry if it sounded a bit sort of like weird, but if you just sort of try to build some interesting roofs on your sort of buildings. Obviously they don't have to, this is only for sort of like steep roofs. I'm going to do probably a video at some point about sort of city buildings and how they don't have to, they can just sort of have like flat roofs and how to build the edges of those. But yeah, so thank you guys so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed this video and you learnt a bit from it, and hopefully I'll see you in some other ones. So thank you for watching, and bye.